Hey everybody, this is Matt Kramer again. I'm going to do FDR part 2 here, for as long as we can. I believe we got through the cabinet in the first video. Let's read about Eleanor Roosevelt, born in 1884 and died in 1962. With FDR's continued political involvement, despite his paralysis, his wife Eleanor took a greater role in helping him by traveling to the country to visit people, learn of conditions, and report back to him. She started in the 1920s as the governor's wife and expanded her role as the nation's first lady. Eleanor went deep into the coal mines and often was found on assembly lines. During World War II, she visited troops at home and abroad. She worked to gain a greater voice for women in the political process and helped African Americans as well. Mrs. Roosevelt made her anti-segregationist feelings clear when she sat between whites and blacks at the Southern Conference for Human Welfare in Birmingham, and later invited Marian Anderson to sing at the Lincoln Memorial. During World War II, the First Lady convinced the Army Nursing Corps to allow black nurses to serve. Following her husband's death, Mrs. Roosevelt continued her work to help the oppressed of the world and often served on panels for the newly formed United Nations. Interesting. FDR and polio. During the first half of the 20th century, scores of American families were struck by the polio virus. Usually children were its victims, and often their legs were left useless. Occasionally, adults were affected, and Franklin Roosevelt was nearly 40 years old when he developed polio. In the summer of 1921, FDR wanted something done for all the others who could not afford the fine care available to him at Warm Springs, Georgia. So in 1938, President Roosevelt helped start an organization, the National Foundation for the Infantile Paralysis, whose purpose was to find a cure for the disease and help those who were afflicted. Appeals for money were broadcast on the radio, and people were asked to send in dimes. So comedian Eddie Cantor called it the March of Dimes. A popular radio show was the March of Times, Times, and that became the new name of the organization. Later, FDR's picture was put on the dime since he was so closely associated with the crusade. Interesting. The golden age of radio. Although begun in the 20s, the 30s, and 40s, begun in the 20s, the 30s and 40s saw radio make its presence felt throughout the nation's living rooms. Music programs were most popular, and during the Depression, daytime serials began. Afternoon shows often featured comic strip characters such as Little Orphan Annie and Dick Tracy. In the evenings, families gathered to hear dramatic presentations performed by well-known actors of both stage and Hollywood. One program was almost too dramatic when, on a Halloween night, in 1938, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater performed War of the Worlds. Although a disclaimer ran throughout the program, many disregarded it and believed that New Jersey was truly under attack by aliens from outer space. Any question of the power of radio disappeared after that night. That's cool. American POW camps. This is not about the Japanese internment, but I hope there is an article for it. And there is. I hope there is. Yes, okay. So let's get to POW camps first. During World War II, prisoners from the European theater were the European War, were frequently shipped to the United States where they were held in POW camps that existed in nearly every state. Although the camps had originally begun in the southern states, they expanded to accommodate the Italian and German prisoners, numbering over 400,000. Some of these prisoners remained in the United States after World War II rather than return to their war-torn homes. Did we know, and this is where we left off in video one, FDR was an avid stamp collector. He helped design some U.S. postage stamps while president, approved all new stamps during his presidency, and his stamp collection was purchased for more than $200,000 after his death. Japanese internment camps, one of the worst decisions by FDR. Following the hysteria of the attack of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the U.S. government quickly ordered a roundup of more than 100,000 100,000 Americans of Japanese descent. They were put in relocation centers based in several western states. People were crowded into barracks that often were devoid of plumbing or heating. Then in 1944, President Roosevelt signed an executive order to begin closing the camps. In 1988, Congress passed a reparations bill granting all survivors of the detainment of one-time payment of $20,000 and an apology from the U.S. government. Now, okay, so let me backtrack. The U.S. government made the mistake. Maybe whether it was Roosevelt who started it, we don't know. The internment camps, we don't know. I thought he was in charge of it, but he actually had it closed in 1944, a year before he died. If I remember, he passed away in 45. Yeah, 45. So he ended it just in time before he passed away. One of the people in those Japanese internment camps, of course, was George Takei of Star Trek, the original series. Home front. During World War II, Americans were exhorted to do their part to win the war by rationing, buying war bonds, and planting victory gardens. Children at school and adults at work were constantly reminded of the boys overseas who needed everyone at home to help. Women served in a variety of military organizations. WACS, Women's WACS, Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, WASPs, Women's Airborne Service Pilots, and WAVES, Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Services. They provided priceless assistance to the factories, making Rosie the Riveter an American icon. Hollywood. Throughout FDR's administration, Hollywood played a key role in boosting American morale. During the Great Depression, movies were turned out in astonishing frequency, especially popular with musicals with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The escapades of German Shepherd Rin Tin Tin, and the ever cute little pixie Shirley Temple. The star system created by the studios reached its zenith during the 40s, and fans flocked to see their favorite stars. Then, during World War II, Hollywood became a propaganda machine to help America's war effort. Stars went on tours and attended rallies to boost sales of war bonds, while many of its leading men, including Clark Gable and Jimmy Stewart, enlisted. And that's all for FDR. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll get to Harry Truman probably Sunday for sure. Maybe tomorrow. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.